We're always hearing about these big policy changes happening right now, the stuff that's making headlines today. But sometimes the stories that really matter, the ones that have a big impact, they've been happening quietly for years, even decades. And that's exactly what we're going to look at today. It's like almost 30 years, this whole thing in Andhra Pradesh trying to subcategorize scheduled castes,
Yeah.
SCs, you know?
Yeah.
Now, that might sound kind of boring, like some government paperwork thing, but believe me, this is a big deal for a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely. When we talk about social justice, right,
Right.
and to making sure everyone gets a fair shot, well, these long struggles, they show us just how complicated and unequal things really are. This isn't just some theory or splitting hairs, It's about realizing that even within a group like scheduled castes, some people face more disadvantages than others, historically. So trying to make things fairer within those communities, well, that's really important work.
Okay, so let's talk about what's actually happening right now on the ground. After all this time, it seems like things are finally moving forward.
Yeah, they are. Chief Minister Naidu, he made a big announcement in the State Assembly. Basically, he said Andhra Pradesh is all in on making this subcategorization happen. The important thing is the timeline and how they're going to do it. Right now, the plan is to do this at the district level, using the data from the 2026 census. So they're waiting on that.
So it's still a bit down the road then, waiting for that census data, but it sounds like they've made a real commitment.
Exactly. It's not just talk. The State Assembly, they passed a resolution to include the Budugajangam caste in the SC list, officially. Of course, now they need the central government to approve it, and we know how that can go sometimes. Could take a while.
Which brings us to the history here, right? This subcategorization idea, it's not new. This has been going on for a while.
We got it. To really get why this is such a big deal now, we got to go back, way back to 1997. The chief minister back then, same guy, Naidu, he issued an order to subcategorize SC reservations. The goal was the same as now, to deal with inequality and poverty within those communities. They set up these groups, A, B, C, and D.
And that actually worked for a bit, right? Didn't the president have to approve it or something?
You're right. In 1999, President Narayan, he gave the okay. Big step. And it seems like it actually did some good, created something like 22,000 jobs. The Madiga community especially, they seem to benefit from this. So it was working.
But like a lot of these complicated policy things, there was a twist. The Supreme Court got involved.
Right. 2004, the Supreme Court, they made a ruling that changed everything. They said only the parliament, the national government, could do this subcategorization for reservations, not the states. So Andhra Pradesh, they had to stop. It was a setback, for sure. It showed how tricky this whole federal system can be, who has the power to do what.
So for a while, it seemed like the state couldn't do anything about this. But then things started changing again. There was the Ushamira Commission.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? Even after that Supreme Court ruling, the central government, they knew this was important, this whole reservation thing. So they set up this commission, the Ushamira Commission, to look at what happened in Andhra Pradesh between 2000 and 2004 when they did that subcategorization. And guess what? The commission found out that it worked. It actually helped.
So that's kind of weird, right? The central government saying a state policy worked, but the law said the state couldn't do it anymore.
Exactly. It shows how messy this stuff can be,
Yeah.
evidence versus the law. So it kind of set the stage for maybe changing things legally.
And then fast forward to last year, 2023, another big Supreme Court ruling, and this time it changes everything again. What did that ruling do?
That August 2023 ruling was huge. Justice Chandrachud and the other judges, they basically changed their mind. They said, actually, state governments can do this subcategorization for SC reservations.
Yeah.
Specifically for state government jobs and education.
Yeah.
So Andhra Pradesh, they can start working on it again.
So all those years, the initial success, then the Supreme Court saying no, and finally the court saying yes. It's a long road to make these changes.
It really is. Shows how much work it takes to fix these deep-rooted social problems,
Yeah.
Policy changes, legal battles, it's all connected. And it's important to remember why they're doing this. We're talking about communities that have faced so much discrimination.
Right. The information we've been looking at, it shows how bad things still are. Like Dalits not being allowed to use wells in Telangana or having to walk barefoot in some villages. These aren't just stories. They show how unequal things are, even today.
Those are terrible examples, but they're important, right? They show why this subcategorization matters. It's not just about moving numbers around. It's about trying to fix these real problems. And, even before that first try at subcategorization, Naidu, he set up the Justice Punaya Commission to look at untouchability and issued a bunch of orders to stop it. So he's been working on this for a long time.
And that brings us to what's happened recently with that one-man commission. What did that commission do?
So after that 2023 Supreme Court ruling, Andhra Pradesh, they got to work. November 2024, they set up this commission. Just one guy, Rajiv Ranjan Mishra, a retired IAS officer. His job was to study this whole SC sub-categorization thing, see what needed to be done. So he went all over Andhra Pradesh, all 13 districts, talking to people, gathering data. And then March 10th this year, he gave his report to the government.
And that report probably led to the new sub-categorization plan that Naidu announced, right? What are the details of that plan?
It seems like that report was pretty influential, yeah. The new system has got three main groups within the scheduled castes in Andhra Pradesh. Each group gets a certain percentage of the reservation benefits. So group 1, they're called most backward. That's the Reli subgroup, and they get 1%. Then there's group 2, backward, mostly the Madhya subgroups, and they get 6.5%. And finally, group 3, relatively less backward, that's the Mala subgroups, they get 7.5%.
So it's like a ranking system, trying to give more help to the groups that are the most disadvantaged.
Exactly. The idea is to make sure the reservations are actually helping the people who need them most. Even within the SCs, there are differences, right? So this is trying to level the playing field a bit more. And to make sure this works in practice, they've also got this roster system for jobs.
How does that roster system work?
It's like a list, a preset order for how they'll give out jobs across these new subcategories. So it follows the percentages. For example, let's say there are 100 jobs. Well, based on the percentages, they would give about 8 jobs to the Mala subgroup, because they have 7.5%, there might be some rounding. Then 6 or 7 to the Madhya subgroup, 6.5%, and 1 to the Reli subgroup, 1%. And if it's 200 jobs, then you double it, roughly. So it's a way to make sure the jobs are distributed fairly over time.
Makes sense. It's a way to make the system more transparent and actually benefit the right people. Now, along with all this, Naidu's been talking about his party's record on social justice, especially for Dalit leaders.
Yeah, that's pretty common when politicians announce these big social policies. They want to show they've been doing this kind of thing all along. So Naidu, he talked about GMC Balayogi, the first Dalit Lok Sabha speaker, back when his party was in power. He said that was a big step for Dalit representation. He also mentioned Pradeep Havarathi, who was the Andhra Pradesh Assembly Speaker in 1999, and Kaki Madhava Rao, who was the Chief Secretary. All Dalits in important positions.
So it's like he's saying, we've been fighting for these communities for a long time.
Exactly. Building that narrative of commitment. And talking about new initiatives, there's this P4 model they're starting. Sounds like a new way to help people economically.
Yeah, the P4 model, it's supposed to start on Ugadi, the Telugu New Year. It's focused on helping the poorest 20% of people. The idea is to get the wealthiest 10% to use their resources and skills to help. So it's not just charity, it's more like building something sustainable to help people lift themselves up.
It's interesting to see how these development ideas change. We know there was a P3 model before, which was all about public-private partnerships. This new one seems more focused on directly helping the poorest people, connecting them with the wealthiest.
And they're working on other things too, like giving caste certificates to the Terpu Kapu community. So it seems like they're trying to deal with all sorts of caste issues.
Yeah, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Once you start addressing one big issue like this, you start seeing all the other connected problems.
Yeah.
And having the right documents, like those caste certificates, well, that's really important for people to get the benefits and rights they deserve.
So to sum it all up, we've gone through this long, complicated history of trying to subcategorize scheduled castes in Andhra Pradesh. It started way back, then the Supreme Court stopped it, then they said it was okay again, and now they have this new plan with different groups and percentages.
Absolutely. This whole thing really shows how tough it is to make real change,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to social justice. In democracy, in a federal system like India,
Yeah.
laws being made at different levels, courts getting involved, and then trying to keep up with how society is changing. It's a lot.
And for you, listening, especially if you don't know much about Andhra Pradesh, this really shows how complicated these things can be, trying to fix historical inequalities, making sure everyone's represented fairly. And it shows how important accurate data is, like from the census, to make good policy decisions.
And then there's this constant back and forth between the state and central governments, which we see all the time in India.
Right. And as we wrap this up, it makes you think about what comes next. What's going to happen in Andhra Pradesh after this? How will this affect all the different subgroups? And what lessons can other states or even the central government learn from this whole experience, the good and the bad? This isn't over. This is going to keep unfolding for years to come. It's definitely worth keeping an eye on.